Every pair of eyes in this life-filled space gathered on Xiao Yin, who had been embraced by the ancient tree. Their eyes were relatively hot. Those who could come to this place had naturally heard of the 3 Bodhisattva treasures. This so-called meditation under the Bodhisattva ancient tree might seem very vague and undetectable, but the potential that it could provide caused one to go crazy. How did this fellow end up gaining such an advantage first? Jiufeng's expression was gloomy. Even with his character, he could not control the jealousy that filled his stomach. He would rather these great benefits be given to anyone but someone he disliked. The warm smile, which usually hung on Han Yu's face by the side, significantly diminished while Jiufeng's expression was gloomy. His fingers continued to rub against each other. Clearly, the emotions in his heart were not as calm as he appeared on the surface. No one would be able to remain calm if one could gain such a great potential. Had I known earlier, I would have summoned the experts from the clan using the spatial jade token outside. At this moment, Han Yu felt regret form within his heart. If he had not been worried that the experts from the Gu clan would have intervened, he would have shattered the spatial jade token and summoned the experts from the Hun clan to kill Xiao Yin the moment he broke out of the beast tide. Since Xiao Yin was with the Gu clan, Han Yu could not forcefully attack him. After all, Han Yu understood that these people from the Gu clan also possessed a spatial jade token to summon their clan's experts. If they were to end up entangled with each other outside the tree, they would only end up benefiting the rest. Only at this moment did Han Yu feel some regret in his heart, but it was too late. The space in this place was a created realm. It was not possible for a spatial ripple to be created here, so he could not summon the experts from the Hun clan. Han Yu's eyes flickered. He suddenly looked at Jiufeng. Both of them glanced at each other. They were able to detect a dark chill in the other party's eyes, and their chins were gently inclined in a manner unnoticeable to others. Bang! Han Yu and Jiufeng suddenly moved after their chins lowered. They turned into 2 black lines and appeared under the Bodhisattva ancient tree with such swiftness that no one could react. The both of them circulated the Do Qi in their bodies as they ruthlessly attacked Xiao Yin, who had been embraced by the tree. From the looks of it, they were planning on forcefully waking Xiao Yin from his slumber. Han Yu, how dare you? Sun Er's group detected their destination the moment those 2 figures shot out. Their expressions drastically changed. 2 handprints were swiftly formed in front of Sun Er by a golden flame. These 2 handprints quickly shot toward Han Yu and Jiufeng. However, the both of them decided to ignore Sun Er's attack. Frightening Do Qi was present in their hands as they ruthlessly slammed toward the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Bang! A muffled sound was emitted when the ferocious palm winds landed on the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Before a smile could surface on Han Yu's and Jiufeng's faces, they suddenly sensed an exceedingly terrifying force surging from the spots where their palms had landed. Grug! Shock quickly surged into Han Yu's and Jiufeng's eyes because of this frightening retaliation force. They did not have the time to dodge before that terrifying force fearlessly charged into their bodies. All of their Do Qi defenses collapsed as both of them flew backwards like kites with their string cut. They spat out a mouthful of blood as their bodies formed an arc in the air. Everyone present was startled when they saw Han Yu and Jiufeng being defeated in an instant. They quickly looked at the Bodhisattva ancient tree with some shock. This thing was indeed extraordinary. Who? Sun Er's pretty eyes stared intently at Xiao Yin in the Bodhisattva ancient tree. She only sighed in relief after seeing that he was not awoken. Her pretty icy cold eyes swung to Han Yu and Jiufeng as a golden flame rose within them. The experts from the Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe were shocked after seeing Sun Er's eyes. They hurriedly gathered Han Yu and Jiufeng, who had climbed to their feet. Looking at the situation, they seemed to be ready to engage in a big fight at the slightest disagreement. Sun Er, don't be reckless. Gu Qingyang stopped Sun Er. His eyes looked at Hun Yu's group in an unfriendly manner. The Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe were clearly cooperating. It would be difficult to determine a victor if they were to engage in a bloody battle. Most importantly, the commotion would be far too great should they really fight. They would end up losing more than they gain if they wake Xiao Yin from his condition. Sun Er was similarly aware of Gu Qingyang's concern in her heart. Hence, she nodded and slowly withdrew her ice-cold eyes. Her eyes soon shifted to Xiao Yin seated in the tree with his eyes shut. Blah. Han Yu and Jiufeng wiped off the trace of blood from the corner of their mouths. They looked at Xiao Yin, who continued to remain still in the tree. A dark and solemn expression appeared on their faces. It was unexpected that they were unable to wake him from his slumber even with their combined attack. Looks like the Bodhisattva ancient tree is protecting him. Just what kind of damn luck does this fellow have? Han Yu and Jiufeng were clearly aware that the retaliation force from earlier had been unleashed by the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Otherwise, with just Xiao Yan's strength alone, it would have been impossible for him to fight against the both of them. Nevertheless, they were helpless despite being aware of this fact. After the exchange earlier, they already understood that even if they were to gather everyone here, it would be impossible for them to even damage a leaf on the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Regardless of how jealous they felt in their hearts, they could only watch because of the protection offered by the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The atmosphere of the space appeared grave after Han Yu and Jiufeng became quiet. There were two parties that did not see eye to eye. The other groups that did not belong to the three factions did not dare to randomly intervene in such a fight. They stood far away and searched for a method to leave. This Bodhisattva ancient tree seems to have a good impression of Xiao Yin. I wonder what happened earlier. Under normal circumstances, Xiao Yin should have also fallen into an illusion. Gu Qingyang glacéed at Han Yu's group before turning his head to remark to Sun Er. Sun Er slightly nodded. She said, "It seems that it is impossible to leave this place. I made an attempt earlier, but I was unable to tear open even the slightest spatial crack. I'm afraid that we can only wait for Xiao Yin Ji to awaken." Gu Qingyang nodded. He had also made an attempt. The space in this place was surprisingly firm. Even though he had used all his strength, he could not create even the tiniest spatial ripple. Even less needed to be said about tearing space. All we can do is wait. At least the life force in this place is extremely dense. It should not be much of a problem to wait for some time. Kai Lin also opened her mouth to speak at this moment. It was impossible for her to abandon Xiao Yin and leave. However, we should remain cautious of those people during this period of time. The group slowly nodded after hearing these words. Han Yu and his gang clearly possessed some ill thoughts. Even though it was only a legend, they were extremely unwilling to allow Xiao Yin experience the reincarnations and knowledge from the Bodhisattva ancient tree, especially if it allowed him to gain the potential to reach the Do-D class. Given both parties' stances, it would be a great disaster for them if Xiao Yin reached that stage. The concept of time within this mysterious place was extremely blurry, but no one was able to form a spatial crack go escape. Everyone still felt some fear because of the extremely lifelike illusion from earlier, so no one truly dared to act wildly in this place. Although it was a little boring, it was at least real. If one were stuck in that illusion again, it would be impossible to differentiate between reality and the illusion. That feeling was extremely terrifying. As time continued to flow, everyone gradually began to enter their training states. The energy in this place was filled with a great life force. It was a supplement that could nourish anyone. Moreover, if one used this energy to heal one's injuries, it would even be able to get rid of hidden injuries within one's body. Hence, everyone began to enter a training state while they waited. All of them benefited during this period of time. Of course, Sun Er's group had naturally allocated some people to monitor Han Yu's group while they trained. They were prepared to jump into action following any problems. Fortunately, after experiencing the retaliation force, Hunu and Jiufeng understood that any crazy actions were useless. Hence, they did not secretly attack during this period of time. Around 1 month slowly passed in this place amid this dull training. The Bodhisattva ancient tree did not show any activity during this 1 month. Xiao Yin, who had remained seated inside, was just like a mosquito frozen in an amber. He did not move, and even his aura had disappeared from everyone's senses. Sometimes, even Sun Er's group would feel panic in their hearts. Fortunately, they still retained their rational thoughts and did not do anything because of this panic. Although they retained their sense of reasoning, others were uneasy and began to go crazy with the flow of time. After all, no one was willing to be trapped in this place forever. If that was the case, what difference was there between them and a prisoner? This irritation continued for 7 days before some people were finally unable to endure the madness in their hearts. These people's eyes turned red, and they prepared to fight with the Bodhisattva ancient tree when the human figure seated inside it finally shook. Those eyes, which had been shut for a month, were slowly opened in front of many shocked gazes. This space, which was filled with life force, suddenly fluctuated after the person inside the Bodhisattva ancient tree slowly opened his eyes. Everyone looked at the pair of dark black eyes inside the Bodhisattva ancient tree. At that instant, everyone seemed to see an old experienced expression that seemed to have seen through everything in the world. This kind of feeling originated from deep within that person's soul, and it was impossible to replicate. Xiao Yin GG. Sun Er looked at Xiao Yin, who had opened his eyes. Her pretty pupils were filled with joy. This person's eyes really penetrate others. Hunyu's group exchanged glances with each other. They had felt a different feeling from the rest. From their senses, they felt as though their souls had been exposed to Xiao Yin when he had looked at them. This feeling was full of discomfort. The entire place was completely quiet. Everyone's eyes gathered on Xiao Yin, who was still embraced by the Bodhisattva ancient tree. They had only read about those who could train under the Bodhisattva ancient tree in some ancient texts. Hence, they did not know what kind of change one would experience after this training. Xiao Yin, who was under the Bodhisattva ancient tree, had an expression of complete loss in front of the many pairs of eyes. His eyes slowly swept over all of them. Finally, they paused on Sun Er's group. Those eyes, which were filled with experience and age, began to reveal a familiar glint. Sun Er. Xiao Yin slowly opened his mouth. A moment later, a somewhat hoarse voice that contained an aged tone was slowly transmitted from the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The expressions of anyone who heard this voice involuntarily changed. This tone was completely different from Xiao Yan's tone in the past. However, the old and experienced expression that permeated Xiao Yan's eyes was slowly withdrawn after this aged voice sounded. Finally, it completely vanished. The old and experienced expression had totally disappeared, as though it had entered deep into Xiao Yan's soul. No one was able to detect it. Who? Xiao Yin lifted his head after this old and experienced expression vanished. He slowly exhaled a mouthful of an emerald green vapor. Soon after, he stood up from the Bodhisattva ancient tree and slowly stepped forward in front of the eyes of many. A ripple formed on the surface of the Bodhisattva ancient tree when Xiao Yan's body touched it. His body appeared like liquid as it slowly slid through the incomparably hard Bodhisattva ancient tree. I have finally returned. Xiao Yin stretched his lazy waist after walking away from the Bodhisattva ancient tree. His clear laughter caused Sun Er's group to sigh in relief. Fortunately, this was Xiao Yan's old voice. Xiao Yin GG, are you all right? Sun Er quickly stepped forward. Her pretty eyes continued to sweep over Xiao Yin as she asked a question. I'm fine. Xiao Yin shook his head. His hand involuntarily touched Sun Er's smooth black hair as deep feelings flashed across his eyes. In the eyes of others, he seemed to have only spent 1 month within the Bodhisattva ancient tree. However, he understood that his soul had already experienced 100 reincarnations within the Bodhisattva ancient tree. If his mind wasn't strong, he would have gotten lost within those reincarnations. Fortunately, he had gone through the experiences with a firm heart and finally returned. Within a short month, he had experienced too many lives and too many deaths. The danger level was clearly no different than battling with a genuine Do Sheng. Sun Er did not dodge as she looked at Xiao Yan's eyes. Although she was unaware of what Xiao Yin had experienced, she was certain of one thing. This 1 month of training was not as easy as what he showed. Since Xiao Yin was unwilling to say more, she would naturally not ask. "Thank you." Xiao Yin turned his head. His eyes shifted to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. He cupped his hands together and laughed. Rustle, rustle. The Bodhisattva ancient tree, which did not show any activity for a month, suddenly swayed its body when it heard Xiao Yan's thanks. It emitted a rustling sound, causing everyone to feel amazed. This thing actually possessed an intelligence, but it had been unwilling to bother with them. "Your aura. It seems that even I cannot quite see through it. Could you have broken through to the Banshang class?" Gu Qingyang walked forward and softly asked. His tone contained some disbelief because he realized that he was unable to sense Xiao Yan's aura. This kind of feeling was something that even some elite Banshang in the clan had never given him. How can it be this easy? Xiao Yin shook his head. He was not lying to Gu Qingyang. The current him had yet to break through to the Banshang class. He was only a 9th change peak Dozun. Of course, in 1 month's time, he had achieved a level that others could not achieve even with a decade of training. This speed was very shocking, but Xiao Yin understood that the 1 month in the eyes of others had been a century to him. He used 100 years to refine his Do Qi and repeatedly compress it. Only then did the Do Qi in his body complete the 9th change and reach the true peak of the Dozun class. This kind of speed could not be considered fast. Instead, it was relatively slow. However, Xiao Yin was also very cautious of strength that he had obtained from nothing. Even this strength obtained from the reincarnation training had been repeatedly suppressed by him. He did not dare to allow his strength to soar too much. His ambition was extremely great, and he did not wish to sacrifice his future gains for some little benefits. Gu Qingyang was startled when he saw Xiao Yin shake his head. He could only helplessly smile. The current Gu Qingyang was unable to see through Xiao Yin. Xiao Yin withdrew his eyes. He suddenly turned to Hunu, Jufeng, and the rest. They all quickly circulated the Do Qi within their bodies when they saw Xiao Yin look over. Their eyes were cold as they cautiously stared at him. All of them would attack should Xiao Yin display any unusual actions. A ridicule was lifted on the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth when he saw the reactions of those two. If he were to have met these two before entering the Bodhisattva ancient tree, he would have definitely been very afraid of them, but now this fear had completely vanished because the current him was absolutely confident that he could easily control those two in his palm. The surging mighty strength within his body gave Xiao Yin this simple feeling. Hunu and Jiufeng involuntarily clenched their fists when they saw the smile on Xiao Yan's face, especially Hunu. The warm smile that had always been present on his face had paled. A dark expression filled his eyes. He could sense a real danger from the current Xiao Yin. Other than the lunatic within the Hun clan, Xiao Yin in front of him was now the second person from the same generation to give him this vague feeling of danger. This brat seems to have turned into a different person after training under the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Jiufeng's expression was gloomy. If he had known that Xiao Yin would experience such a lucky opportunity, he would not have restrained himself the first time they had met. He would have intervened and killed him, and then the problems now would not have occurred. However, Jiufeng was unaware that everyone present would still be trapped in an illusion if Xiao Yin had not given his aid to eliminate the negative emotions of the elite Dodi from the Bodhisattva ancient tree. In the future, they would have all ended up with a fate similar to the Bansheng puppets they had met earlier. Buzz buzz. An emerald green glow was suddenly emitted from the Bodhisattva ancient tree, while everyone's emotions were churning because of Xiao Yan's transformation. Something seemed to be spat out. Hunyu's group hurriedly withdrew when they saw the Bodhisattva ancient tree move. They had already experienced just how frightening it was. Naturally, they did not dare to slight it. However, a soft, muffled sound appeared time and time again from within the Bodhisattva ancient tree, while they withdrew as many emerald green light spots were spat out of it. Finally, these light spots remained suspended in the air like flowers scattered by a fairy. Bodhisattva seeds. Everyone was startled when they saw these light spots. Many exclamations were suddenly unleashed from their mouths. They are actually all Bodhisattva seeds. Hunyu's group also looked at the emerald light spots with shock. They never would have imagined that the Bodhisattva ancient tree would spit out over 20 of these Bodhisattva seeds that were incomparably rare in the outside world. Snatch. Most people's eyes reddened after feeling shocked. Many majestic dochis suddenly surged. After which, they turned into rays of light that wildly grabbed at these green light spots. Xiao Yin merely laughed after seeing the reddened eyes of Hunyu's group. He beckoned with his hand, and those green light spots seemed to have been summoned. They emitted a swoosh sound as they dodged the hands of those trying to grab them. All of them gathered into Xiao Yan's hand after a couple of flashes. "Thank you for your gift, Brother Bodhisattva." Xiao Yin turned his head and smiled to the Bodhisattva ancient tree after grabbing these Bodhisattva seeds. After which, he flicked his finger. A couple of Bodhisattva ancient seeds in his hands shot out and appeared in front of Sun Er, Kailin, Gu Qingyang, and the rest of the members of his group. "Brother Xiao, thanks." Gu Qingyang, Gu Xing, and the few others looked at the Bodhisattva seeds in front of them with heated eyes. They unceremoniously grabbed them before cupping their hands to thank Xiao Yin. "Ha, it's nothing." Xiao Yin smiled and shook his head. He looked at the group of red-eyed people before flicking his finger once again. A couple of Bodhisattva seed flew out and stopped in front of a few neutral experts. Xiao Yan's sudden actions caused the few experts to be startled. They hurriedly grabbed the Bodhisattva seed in front of them as a grateful expression surfaced in their eyes. They swiftly moved aside. They were well aware that Xiao Yin did not wish for them to get involved in the subsequent matters. Hunyu's and Jiufeng's groups were looking at Xiao Yin, who was distributing the Bodhisattva seeds, with a gloomy expression. A red glow flickered in their eyes. "Bastard, you are asking to die." Jiufeng was finally unable to control the fury in his heart as the red light in his eyes became denser. A furious cry that was filled with murderous intent echoed around this space. Xiao Yin turned his head slowly after hearing Jiufeng's furious cry that was filled with murderous intent. His cold eyes were just like a ferocious beast as they stared at Jiufeng. Jiufeng suddenly felt a chill on his skin as Xiao Yin looked at him. Only then did he recover some of his coolness. His expression continued to remain quite gloomy and cold. His eyes did not give in and stared continuously at Xiao Yin while he spoke in a dense voice. "We have entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree together and experienced so many obstacles. Yet, you are now planning to take all the Bodhisattva seeds away. Aren't you a little too unreasonable?" Xiao Yin burst out in laughter after hearing this. He said, "Unreasonable? I'm afraid that this is not what you are thinking. You should be thinking of talking with your fist, right?" Xiao Yin clearly understood in his heart that if it was not because his strength deterred Jiufeng, it was likely that the latter would have attacked and forcefully snatched those Bodhisattva seeds. Being reasonable? This was a kind of protection that the weak sought in the face of great strength. The corner of Jiufeng's eyes twitched a couple of times. A murderous desire that could not be suppressed surged within his heart, but it was fortunate that he retained some rational thoughts and did not immediately attack. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Hunu. His voice was gloomy as he said, "Brother Hunu, don't tell me that you are happy that he took all the Bodhisattva seeds away, making our effort during this period of time to be worthless, right?" Hunyu's expression was calm. He did not reply. Instead, both of his eyes were flickering with a sinister expression and displayed the dissatisfaction in his heart. Regardless of how calculating he was, he still had difficulty suppressing his fury and desire to kill at this moment. "Xiao Yin, distribute 8 Bodhisattva seeds to my Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix side to end this matter." Hunu was quiet for a moment before his icy cold voice was finally emitted. Xiao Yin smiled. He opened his hand and 11 Bodhisattva seeds sat in his palm. If he was to give 8 Bodhisattva seeds to them, he would only have 3 left. This was not something that Xiao Yin would do. Moreover, these Bodhisattva seeds possessed the mysterious effect of raising one's chances of successfully advancing to the Doshan class, and a seed could be used to refine a Bodhisattva pill. This Tier 8 medicinal pill, which could summon a 9-colored pill lightning, could cause many 9-change peak Do Zun experts to go crazy. If he were to give these Bodhisattva seeds to them, these 2 factions might have more people break through to the Doshan class. Would Xiao Yin not end up creating powerful enemies for no reason? With Xiao Yin's character, he would naturally not do something so foolish. Hence, he gently shook his head and slowly replied, "I refuse." The atmosphere of this place became tense after Xiao Yin's 2 words slowly sounded. A pressure pressed down on everyone's hearts. They knew that the matter today would not end peacefully. Hunyu's expression became volatile after Xiao Yin uttered those 2 words. Hunu glared at Xiao Yin. A moment later, he slowly nodded and said, "In that case, I can only kill you first." Bang! After Hunyu's last words sounded, the many experts from the Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe simultaneously unleashed their Do Chi without any restraint. Their bodies flashed as they surrounded Xiao Yan's group. The expressions of Sun Er's group gradually turned cold when the Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe attacked at the same time. They stepped forward and the Do Chi within their bodies began to circulate. "Hunyu, are you really planning on starting a big war between the Gu clan and the Hun clan?" Gu Qingyang coldly cried out. Big war? My Hun clan has never been afraid of your Gu clan. We have left you in peace for so long to give you all a little more time. Do you really think that my Hun clan doesn't dare touch you?" A shady smile was lifted on Hunyu's face when he heard Gu Qingyang's cry. His dense eyes shifted back to Xiao Yin as he said, "Your name has recently been circulating around my Hun clan. Even 4th Tianzuan failed. Back then, I told them we should act decisively if we were going to act at all, but those old fellows were clearly unconcerned. You have only managed to survive now because they didn't care, however. I think that we should end this uncaring stance." A dense black Do Chi suddenly surged out of Hunyu's body in all directions after his words sounded. Wave after wave of chilly ripples continued to spread from his body. A solemn expression surged onto the faces of Sun Er's group when they sensed the majestic ripple that spread from Hunyu's body. This Hunyu could be ranked within the top 3 among the younger generation of the Hun clan. Such a person was relatively troublesome to deal with. "Leave Xiao Yin to me. Brother Jufeng, the others will be blocked by your Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe and the other experts from the Hun clan." Jufeng nodded after hearing Hunyu's words. He glanced at Xiao Yin and said, "I wish to face this brat in battle, but since Brother Hunyu has already spoken, I will leave him to you." Attack! Bang! Murderous desire surged within the eyes of the many experts surrounding Sun Er's group after Jufeng's cold cry sounded. Powerful Do Chi pillars whistled towards Sun Er's group without mercy. Hmph! Faced with the attacks of the many experts from the Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, Sun Er's group let out a cold snort. Their sleeves were swung, and those Do Chi pillars were annihilated when they were still 10 feet away from their bodies. Although their group was smaller than the Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, their quality was a little better. Xiao Yin, why don't you leave Hunu for me to handle? Sun Er turned to Xiao Yin as she shattered a Do Chi pillar that was rushing over. There's no need for that. Xiao Yin faintly smiled. Before he had entered the Bodhisattva ancient tree, he would only have been able to obtain victory against Hunu, who was a 6-change peak Do Zun, if he used a Fire Lotus. Now, Xiao Yan's level and fighting strength completely surpassed Hunu. What did Hunu have that allowed him to fight with Xiao Yin? All of you only need to deal with Jufeng and the rest. The remaining neutral experts will likely not get involved in this matter after receiving the Bodhisattva seeds. Hence, we should be able to deal with these people despite their large numbers. Xiao Yin glanced at some of the neutral experts who had withdrawn into the distance. These people were quite strong. If they were to aid Hunu's group, the pressure they would face would increase. If Xiao Yin had not been worried about them joining his enemies, he would have been happy to retain a couple more Bodhisattva seeds. You should be careful. Sun Er did not insist after hearing his words. She merely nodded. Xiao Yin smiled. He stepped forward and slowly walked out of the circle that the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe and the Hun clan had formed. Those people gave way when he walked out. Only after Xiao Yin exited the circle did they reform the shape around Sun Er's group. The 2 Shi Ancient God Jade should be in your hands, right? A black glint flashed within Hun Yu's eyes. He questioned as he watched Xiao Yin slowly walk forward and stop a short distance away. You want it? Come take it. Xiao Yin laughed. Hun Yu narrowed his eyes. A dark and cold expression suddenly surfaced on his pale jade-like face. Xiao Yan's smiling face caused a desire to kill to surge within his heart. Razor-tongue brat. Hun Yu coldly laughed. Xiao Yin smiled as he looked at Hun Yu in front of him. He said, Stop playing these games. They're useless in front of me. Xiao Yin suddenly swung his fist toward the empty space to his left after his words sounded. A hot wind formed on his fist as an intense fluctuation immediately formed in that space, after which a figure staggered out of thin air and miserably flew back. That person was surprisingly Hun Yu. Hun Yu's face turned gloomy after being forced back by Xiao Yan's punch. He glanced at the afterimage that gradually paled. It was unexpected that Xiao Yan's senses were so sharp. Xiao Yin glanced at Hun Yu's gloomy face. He glanced at the chaotic battle a short distance away before shaking his head. Without delaying any longer, he took a step forward, and an incomparably vast and mighty aura suddenly surged out of his body in all directions. This aura swept over the entire space the moment it appeared. Some of the weaker individuals vaguely felt a pressure. 9-change peak Dozun? The expressions of those neutral experts in the distance suddenly changed when they sensed the great strength of this aura. Their faces revealed their shock as they looked at Xiao Yin. All of them were certain that Xiao Yin had not possessed this strength 1 month ago. Hun Yu's face twitched at this moment. His expression had become extremely ugly. Only at this moment did he understand why Xiao Yin was unafraid of him. The answer was because Xiao Yan's strength had already far surpassed his. So what if your strength is at the 9th change of a peak Dozun? Do you think that I am afraid of you? Hun Yu inhaled a deep breath of air. He suppressed the shock in his heart as the seal formed by his hands changed. A clan tattoo slowly appeared on his brow. His aura suddenly soared when this clan tattoo appeared. His aura approached Xiao Yan's level in the blink of an eye. 8 change, huh? Unfortunately, this is still insufficient. Xiao Yin smiled and shook his head upon sensing Hun Yu's aura. We will know whether it is enough after exchanging blows. Hunu coldly laughed. His hand seal changed, and he formed many complicated seals. The cold Do Chi within his body formed a frightening black palm in front of him with lightning-like speed. Sharp, miserable cries continued to be emitted from the palm. There was a savage-looking face vaguely visible on it. Soul Destruction Palm. Hunu let out a furious shout after the miserable cries from the palm became intense. That dark black palm quickly rushed toward Xiao Yin with lightning-like speed. The dark black palm was not very large, but it contained an extremely dark, cold, and powerful Do Chi. Hunu understood that he would end up losing if he did not use all his strength against the much stronger Xiao Yin. I have said, it is insufficient. Xiao Yin continued to slowly shake his head even as Hunu's powerful palm continued toward him. After which, he took 2 gentle steps forward and appeared in front of Hunu's palm. Hunu looked on with shocked eyes as a hot flame suddenly surged out of Xiao Yan's right hand. Finally, it gently slammed into the dark black palm. Crack! A stalemate lasted for an instant as the two collided. After which, everyone watching was stunned to see that the dark black palm, which had gathered most of Hunu's Do Chi, was easily burst apart by a random strike of Xiao Yan's hand. This strength absolutely suppressed the attack since it came from a completely different level.